So good evening, everybody. Any of you who don't know me yet, my name is Dan Kirk, and I have the privilege of being the senior warden here at All Souls Church. And if you want a detailed explanation of what a senior warden is, see me at intermission. So I'm on behalf of our congregation here at All Souls, and on behalf of our priest in charge, I am not the priest in charge. On behalf of our priest in charge, Father Tom Reese, we welcome you all here this evening to our monthly Saturdays at 6 concert. If you haven't picked one up, please make sure you get a copy of the concert bulletin as well. It's got a little bit of the history of the church on the left-hand side. It's got the full program that Francesco will share with you this evening on the inside here. And you'll see on the back our mission statement. Back right up at the top. And you'll also see the mission statement when you came in. You may have noticed it on the wall. If you've ever visited our website, you'll see it on our website. So we take that mission statement pretty seriously. And I'm just going to quote one line from that mission statement. It says, "We strive to be mutually supportive of the personal spiritual journey, respecting the individuality of all, and accepting the value of meeting people wherever they are." Wherever they are. Father Tom, our priest in charge, likes to encourage us to practice what he calls, and I think what the scriptures call, radical hospitality. So please feel radically welcome here this evening. So we say that we meet people wherever they are on their spiritual journey, and we meet people in all sorts of places. So if you happen to be on a spiritual journey that includes the Episcopal Church, we do 2 services every Sunday. We do an 8 a.m. virtual service you can access through the All Souls website. It's a live interactive service, 8 o'clock. And we also do a 9:30 Eucharist here in the church every Sunday. But that's where we meet people who practice in the Episcopal Church, but we meet a whole bunch of other people as well on various places in a spiritual journey. One of the jobs that I have as the senior warden is I have the, I don't know if I call it the privilege, the responsibility. I'm the guy who opens the doors in the morning. So I open the doors of this church. The doors of this church are open every day. And I usually open them somewhere between 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning. And it's not unusual when I open those doors that there's someone waiting to come in. So a lot of people visit the church on a daily basis for prayer or reflection. Also, we meet people through our relationship that we have with St. Gerard Mejia, the Roman Catholic Church over in Port Jeff. Sometimes they say Port Jeff, sometimes they say Terryville. So I think I'm going to say Port Jeff for this evening. They have a very large food operation there. I think they feed over 200 families. And the food that you brought here today, and thank you those of you who brought food, that goes directly to St. Gerard's. And that if you didn't bring food today, next time you visit, those bins are always there. So we meet people who are really serious about wanting to feed the hungry in the area. You know, this is an affluent area, but we do have people who are hungry. They tend to be invisible, but they're very much there. We also meet people through these concerts, Saturdays at 6. I often get the call, "What time is the Saturdays at 6 concert?" Got 3 of those calls today. I said, "Well, thank you for calling. The Saturdays at 6 concert is at 6 o'clock. So I realize, that Francisco is a very, very well-known, respected musician. He has a particular affinity with the Spanish community. But we do these concerts every month. So Saturdays at 6, once a month we'll do a concert. We've been doing that the last about 10 years. Did I see you, Plumber, somewhere? You Plumber, where's you, Plumber?
Right here.
Where is that? Oh, there, you. Yeah, that's the guy you can play. You, Plumber, had the foresight to institute this program. I think we started it about almost 10 years ago. So it was you, Plumber, who actually founded this program. So we do the Saturdays at 6, so we meet people there. We also meet people through something we do called Native American drumming. So once a month we host a Native American drumming. That's a spiritual healing experience that comes out of the indigenous people's culture. We do that once a month. And the guy who does it's actually interesting. His bloodline is from the Incas and a couple of other tribes from Colombia. Got a definite Colombian connection tonight. He's also a licensed and practicing chiropractor as well. So it's not only the spirituality through the sounding of the drum, he also is a medical practitioner as well and deals with the science of drumming. So we do drumming, and so we do the concerts, we do the drumming, and we also do poetry here once a month. So the poet laureate of Suffolk County is Dr. Richard Bronson from Stony Brook University. once a month we do a poetry series here called Second Saturday's Poetry. And now we do those on a monthly basis, and then we also do interfaith services here. So we do a weekly interfaith morning prayer service here every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. It truly is interfaith. In fact, the last visiting clergy we had was Rabbi Fisher, former rabbi, chief rabbi over at Temple Emmanuel. So we've had Rabbi Fisher, we've had Rabbi Benson, we've had the Father Bob from the Roman Catholic Church, we've had Pastor Chuck from the local Methodist Church, we've had Father Lou from the Greek Orthodox Church, we've had Iman Abdullah from the Selden Mosque. So we do that. And also, many of you know Tom Manuel through the Jazz Loft. You know Tom is a very talented musician. What you may not know is Tom is also a very talented Pentecostal preacher as well. So once a month when we do our morning prayer service here, once a month he'll come and he does the homily, generally the last Tuesday of the month. Being a Pentecostal, I didn't need to remind him that he's welcome to go wherever the Holy Spirit sent him, but tell the Holy Spirit not to send you or the congregation for more than 10 minutes, because it's only a half-hour service. So we do the interfaith morning prayer. We also do an interfaith rosary here as well. My wife Susan, the woman with the white jacket going in and out, will be doing the reception with you this evening. She does an interfaith rosary here. So we meet people there, and also once a year we celebrate the role of this church in the community, and we raise funds to make this church accessible. This church is on the National Registry, was designed by Stanford White, and when this church was opened in 1896, the life expectancy in the United States was less than 50 years old. So they didn't really factor in too much accessibility and people having to get up those steps and stuff like that. So we've got this project, we do the race each year, the All Souls 5K run, 2K walk. It celebrates the role of the church in the community. It also raises funds to make this church accessible. So our plan is to put in some type of lift system, make it easier for you folks to get up the stairs, and also to put in a bathroom as well. So I don't have to say, we'll go down to Sweet Mama's if you need to use the facilities. And Herb, you want to wave your hand? So if you have any suggestions or ideas on what to do to make this church accessible, talk to Herb.
Pray for me.
So, good. Okay, so those are some of the things that we do. If you want to be on our guest list to get invitations to the monthly concerts, the monthly poetry, the monthly Native American drumming, just put your name and email here, and I'll gladly put you on our list. We have over just about 900 people now. So people ask me, how large is the congregation? Well, I know as the senior warden that we've got, if you include recently baptized children and you include people in nursing home, we've got about 90 people. But if you include people like yourselves that we have a relationship with the community, it's just under 900. So if you want to be on our list and get invitations, just leave your name and email here. I'll leave this up here. Here's the pen, here's the clipboard right here. Okay, now to tonight's program. So we'll have 2 sets of music, which you can follow along in the little concert bulletin. We will take a 15-minute break for intermission, and we do leave time at the end for questions as well. Sue, you want to point to the thank you jar? So Francisco has come all the way from, where was it? You came all the way from your home?
Washington Heights.
Washington Heights. Came out by train, you know, has got pay the sub, he's got to get his train ticket, he's got to get the subway, he probably has to get with that valuable guitar he has, he may have to get an Uber. So any thank you you'd like to leave for Francisco will be very much appreciated. I need to count it, but all the money that you put in that little jar goes to him. I don't take any of it. Okay? And we'll get you out of here before 8 o'clock. Okay. Now, so tonight. Now I tried to limit myself because I've got a 10-minute limit in my opening remarks. So just some highlights of Francisco Roldán. And this is his 3rd visit with us. So Francisco is the executive director of the Musica de Cámara, a nonprofit organization based in New York City whose mission is to promote Latin American and Hispanic composers and musicians. Francisco has performed throughout the world. He's performed in Portugal, in Greece, in Russia, in Spain, in Colombia, Argentina, Dominican Republic, Lithuania, Paraguay, as well as throughout the United States, including at Alice Tully Hall and Lincoln Center. He accompanied the acclaimed flamenco dancer Pilar Rioja in the Repertorio Español Theater in New York for 8 seasons. He performed Rodrigo's Concerto de Aranjuez in was critically acclaimed for it. In 2018, he was invited to perform a tribute concert for the first visit to the US of the renowned Cuban master and composer, Leon Bauer. Francisco has, I didn't realize this until I checked his bio online, he's actually released 5 recordings. So Latin guitar, in which he interprets the music of Barrios, Loro, and which contains the world premiere recording of the Dominican composer Rafael Ladastoi's complete works for guitar. Another recording he has is Almost All Bach, in which he performs the music of Bach and Scarlatti. And then he has Zigzag, performed with his Zigzag Quartet, and contains the music of Pozzarini, Bowling, Canalti, Landestoy, and Pazziolo. He also has a recording with the soprano Gretchen Farrar called Interweaving. And the 5th one, Instruments of the People, with percussionist Danny Mellon. All of these recordings are available on cdbaby.com, iTunes, and Amazon. And you can also check out his recordings on Pandora and Spotify and any other streaming apps. Francisco, I don't know if he has time for this, but he's currently on the faculty of the Mainz College of Preparatory Division and the Alexander Robertson School as well. So let's give a warm welcome to Francisco.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Nice to see you here on a gray, windy, strange, almost summer day. Today I'm going to play a program of Latin American music so we can hear the variety of music from Latin America, South America, and Central America, and the Caribbean, and the wealth of different types of music. So I will tell you a little more about the pieces as I play them. And I also wanted to welcome any Spanish speakers. Bienvenidos al concierto de hoy. Voy a tocar música de Latinoamérica y del Caribe. Y así vamos a ver la diversidad y la riqueza de la música latinoamericana. First, I'm going to start with a piece by Alfonso Montes. He is a composer from Venezuela who's still alive today, and he's written a lot of music for guitar and flute. His wife is a flute player. The piece is called Preludio de Dios, which means the goodbye prelude, and he wrote this piece when he had to leave Venezuela and he was really missing his family. So this is Preludio de Dios by Alfonso Montes. And then the next piece I'm going to play is by the Puerto Rican composer Ernesto Cordero, and he's also alive. He taught at the University of Puerto Rico for many years. He's now retired, and he wrote many pieces for guitar and orchestra, and many songs. Super beautiful music. And this piece that I'm going to play is called Seis Milonga, and a milonga is it's a dance form from Argentina. So here we see also the cross-cultural diversity of South America, where a Puerto Rican composer will take an Argentinian form and make it his own. So this is Seis Milonga by Ernesto Cordero. piece is a piece by the Argentinian composer Jorge Morel, who actually lived in New York in Kew Gardens for many, many years, and he taught at Lehman College in the Bronx. Jorge Morel wrote this piece in honor of a composer we're going to hear later on in the program, Agustin Barrios, who had a second last name, Agustin Barrios Mangoré. And Jorge Morel wrote this piece in honor of him because he loved his music, as all guitarists love Agustin Barrios' music. And this is a very joyful and just fantastic piece that honors Agustin Barrios Mangoré. The next two pieces are by the Cuban composer Leo Brouwer, who again is still alive today, and he visited the United States for the first time in a long time in 2018, and I had the honor of playing in a tribute concert for him, and he was just amazing and very generous, and he did a master class and spent a lot of time with students. He was amazing. He still writes a lot, and I think he's like 83 or 84 years old, and is constantly writing new music to this day. I'm going to do two of his pieces. The first one is called Canción de Cuna, which is a cradle song. So this is Canción de Cuna by Leo Brauer. The second piece by Leo Brauer I like to play is called Danza del Altiplano, which means the dance of the high plains. And the high plains are the Andes, where many, well, this is actually takes a lot of Bolivian types of rhythms and sounds of the pentatonic scale. So this is Danza del Altiplano, and you'll hear some of those sounds, plus I think you might hear some birds also. And then now we're going to hear the piece we heard before by Jorge Morel called Mangoré, which is a tribute to the composer that we're going to hear now, Agustín Barrios Mangoré. He wrote over 300 pieces for the solo guitar, and he is from Paraguay, and he traveled extensively throughout Europe and the Americas playing his music. Actually, I think he died in El Salvador in the 40s, I think 1940s. I'm going to play two pieces of his. The first one is called Las Abejas, which means the bees. for the Valse Opus 8, number 4, which is a waltz.
So just before we go into intermission, it's our tradition here talk a little bit about the history of the church. The congregation has been here since before the Civil War, and this building, designed by Stanford White, has been here since 1896. So those of you who live in Stony Brook and know the area has changed very much, the village and so forth, over the last 20, 30 years. But one thing hasn't changed, and that's this church. It's been here as a constant. So I'll just tell you one quick story. Sue, could you point out the plaque to Mother Ann Plummer? So there's all sorts of plaques in the church, and this one's very special to all of us. That's a plaque in honor of Mother Ann Plummer. And Mother Ann Plummer, in many ways, is the manifestation of something in our mission statement. We say that we are a Christian community in the Anglican tradition. And what that means to us in the Anglican tradition is that, yes, we are Christian. We do recognize the importance of Scripture. We do recognize the importance of tradition. But we also emphasize the importance of reason. Reason. So that emphasis on reason, for instance, the Episcopal Church came into being after the Revolutionary War. Because the head of the Church of England was the King of England. And so after the Revolution, it probably wasn't such a good idea to have a church in the United States where the head was the King of England. So that's when the Episcopal Church got started. When you hear that term, the Anglican Communion, those are all those Christian churches that have their historical roots in the Church of England. So that emphasis on reason, one of the issues that's existed since the founding of the Episcopal Church is how come we don't have any women priests? Well, it took them a long time. So sometimes, though you emphasize reason, it takes you a long time to get there. So in 1974, there was a group called the Philadelphia 11. And these were the first women who were ordained as priests in the Episcopal Church. And that was 2 years before the General Convention actually authorized the ordination of women. And Mother Ann was in many ways a historical figure because she was one of the first women ordained in this diocese, the Diocese of Long Island. Or one of the first women ordained as a priest. And she served as our priest in charge from 2004 to 2009. And Mother Ann kind of shook things up a bit here. When she got here, she challenged us. She said, "What are you doing to engage the community?" I said, "Well, Mother Ann, we have the doors open every day. And we do bake sales." And she said, "No, you don't understand. What are you doing to serve the community? What are you doing to engage the community? What are you doing to get people to enter into a relationship with you, other than just assuming that hopefully they'll show up at church one day?" Well, she was the inspiration of the Souls for All Souls race. So that was the first outreach that we did. Maybe a little bit different than what she thought we were going to do, but it was her challenge to say, "Okay, we'll engage the community, we'll do a race." We never did a race before, but we've now been doing it for 15 years. We did that, and that once we did that, then we started to add, in answer to her challenge, we started to add our monthly outreach programs. The Saturdays at 6 series, this series, which actually was founded and started by Mother Ann's husband, Hugh Plummer, who we recognized before, who's with us this evening. We did that, and then we added the poetry readings, and then we added the Native American drumming, all in response to Mother Ann's challenge to engage the community. So as I look out and see that all the pews are filled, and the community is engaged, I think Mother Ann would be quite pleased. So that's my little story. Now, as far as when we go into intermission, a couple of things. Again, Shu, you want to point out the little thank you to Francisco there? So if you'd like to give a thank you for Francisco, just put a little contribution in the jar here that goes directly to him. There is this list here if you want to be on our invitation list for the concerts, for the poetry, and for the Native American drumming. Just put your name and email here. We'll take a 15-minute break, and we're serving 2 wines from tonight in honor of our wonderful musician. We've got a Garnacha from Spain in the red, and we've actually got something quite rare but quite delicious. We have a white Malbec from Argentina. And lest you think all we do here at All Souls is drink wine, we also have water. That's right. There are 2 trash bins. There's a trash bin here, and there's a trash bin right by Susan in the back. And we don't have a pretentious man we're coming around with a triangle like the Metropolitan Opera. We'll ring the bell and we'll flash the lights. So we'll pick up in about 15 minutes. See you then. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So I got, apparently the wine was popular, so thank you. The feedback is good.
Yes.
So let's welcome back Francisco.
We're going to start the second half of the piece that I wrote a few years ago. It's called Preludio number 1 or Prelude number 1. And here it is. Some years ago, I had the pleasure, I was playing a concert in Manhattan, and at the end of the concert, an elderly gentleman, very well dressed in a beautiful suit, came up to me and said, "I would like you to play my music." And he handed me these 9 pieces, and that was Raphael Landisloy. It was an honor to have known him, and for many years, I was his friend, and then he passed away in, I think, 2018. I think he was 93. And he wrote a lot of music for piano and also for guitar and for voice and piano. This piece I'm going to play now is called Vals de Tilsia, and Tilsia was a very good friend of his, and she was one of the warmest, friendliest people I've ever met, and I think that this piece, Vals de Tilsia, projects that. much. The next piece is from Venezuela, and it's by Ignacio Figueredo, who was a harp player in Venezuela, and he was originally found in the 1950s by a TV crew that was going around Venezuela filming different types of indigenous music and folkloric music that wasn't well known. And they found Ignacio Figueredo playing his harp, and he didn't read or write music, but he composed all of these pieces. And somebody recorded them, and the great Venezuelan guitarist Valerio Diaz did some transcriptions for the guitar of some of his pieces. So this is a piece called Los Cajuaritos, originally for Venezuelan harp. It's not the big harp that you use in classical music, but it's not small, but it's smaller, and it's used in the Venezuelan tradition. And Cajuaritos means people from Cajuaro, which is a city in Venezuela, just like the New Yorkers, so these are the Cajuaritos. So Los Cajuaritos. Now we go to Argentina for the music of Astor Piazzolla, who single-handedly changed Argentinian tango from this beautiful traditional tango, and then he added his own elements, because he lived in New York for many years and also in France, and so he added, I guess, jazz elements and then his own voice. And I guess some people could say he ruined tango, but most people say he brought it to a different level. I mean, tango is beautiful. Either way, as we're going to hear in the tango after this tango. But this is Astor Piazzolla's Verano Porteño, which means summer in the port city, which is Buenos Aires. And I think you'll hear the hustle and bustle of the city, and then a nice evening with in a cafe also. So that was an example of the newer tango that Piazzolla introduced. The next piece we're going to hear, even though it wasn't written by an Argentinian, it was written by Agustin Barrios. Again, Agustin Barrios Mingoré from the first half. This is called Don Pérez Freire. And Pérez Freire apparently was, Don means Mr. in Spanish. So if you say Don Care, that means Mr. Care, right? So Don Pérez Freire was a student of Agustin Barrios, so he must have been a very good student because Agustin named his piece after him. And it's a tango, and it's one of the, it has the old tango feel. Before I play my last piece, I'd like to thank Dan for inviting me to come and play. This is my third time here, and it's such a pleasure to come here and share my music with you in such a beautiful church. It's amazing The acoustics are fantastic, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
So the last piece is called La Misionera, or Misionera, and it was a popular tune in the 40s in Argentina by Ferdinando Bustamante wrote the piece. Jorge Morel took it and arranged it for solo guitar. So this is another piece by the Argentinian composer Jorge Morel, and it's an adaptation of a popular Argentinian song.
special concert at many levels. So it's our tradition here to leave time for any questions that any member of the audience would like to ask of the musician performing. So any questions? Yes.
What sort of who made the guitar that you're playing?
Oh, I was also asked before that. The guitar's made by a luthier in Cape Cod. His name is Stephen Connor, and he lives in Cape Cod, and he's a very famous luthier of classical guitars. So Stephen Connor.
Okay, other questions? I have one, and mine is not an easy one. You mentioned when we were driving back from the train station, or maybe it was driving here to the church, how much you were impacted by Segovia. And you told that story about your first trip to Spain and how we're going with that dinner that went late and you were supposed to be pulling stuff with. And it got me thinking about the way that we describe the concert. You know, when we having this the third time that we've had you, do I say Spanish guitarist? Do I say classical guitarist? Do I say Latin American guitarist? And then I remember Segovia. And then I just wondered in terms of, and you get the broad diversity within South America, all the different countries that are represented here. And there's always that tension between the Spanish, you know, in terms of their influence, in many ways very positive, but also the influence of colonization as well. And so my question to you is this, is that within the diversity of South America, particularly with regard to musicians who play guitar, how do they rationalize the role of the Spanish in terms of their impact on the music that actually is performed?
Well, I mean, art is, I guess art just takes from everything. So I don't think like Latin American or musicians are thinking of Spanish art as something that is negative. It's beautiful. So any composer like Albéniz or Granados or Manuel de Falla from Spain is totally welcome. Just like, you know, you're not going to like Beethoven or Mozart or anybody go away just because they're Austrian or German. You know, like they're incredible music makers. Bach. I mean, you can't have any greater musicians than that. So I think art is very different from, let's say, politics or anything like that, in the sense that it does take and appreciates beauty created anywhere, whether it's in, you know, Africa or in Russia or in uptown Manhattan. You know, it's beautiful. You know, beauty is beauty. And I think all the guitarists or all the musicians from South America appreciate all of this beauty, regardless of where it comes from.
I don't ask easy questions. Any others? Yes, in the back.
When did you know that you wanted to be a guitarist?
Well, it's funny because when I was a kid, I started with recorders, I was telling Dan, in 6th grade, and then later on I wanted to play the piano, but my parents couldn't afford a piano, so they got this little keyboard, and it was so disappointing. I was like, I don't want to play that. So then I started to listen to Jimi Hendrix. So Jimi Hendrix was actually my first influence. I loved his, and I still love his music to this day. And I started playing electric guitar, and then as I was telling Dan in the car, after maybe a year and a half or a couple of years of playing electric guitar, my father brought home a Segovia record, and that just floored me, like that just changed. And little by little, I stopped playing electric guitar, and then I eventually just had it like under the couch for so long, and I ended up selling it and just became a classical guitarist. So I would say classical guitarist as opposed to, you know, Spanish or Latin American, just because most of us classical guitarists play all kinds of music. Today I just chose to play a Latin American concert because that's what I'm doing now. But I was just last year I was playing Spanish music, and so I Bach, you know, any of the music that comes that way, and I feel like playing that particular year, or someone asks me to, I will do so. Yes.
I'm just curious, are there any particular composers who are particularly difficult to play technically? My dad played piano, and he used to talk about like Rachmaninoff and Liszt and how, you know, everything they did just seemed very difficult. Is there anybody like that on guitar?
Well, I mean, it's my belief that every piece needs to be respected. Like, even if you think it's easy, it's, you know, you gotta really interpret it. I mean, Joaquin Rodrigo's a Spanish composer, is pretty difficult. Bach, Albéniz, you know, Granados, but they all are, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
like Fernando Sor, Giuliani, it depends on the piece. So again, it's just a matter of approaching the piece with respect, whatever it is. You know, even if you think it's easy, everything has a different difficulty to it. So, does that answer your question?
Yep.
Fellow musician, Alex?
If you play Bach, Do you like anything in particular, like his inventions or cello suites or?
Oh my God, I mean,
All-
he's
all-
everything. I mean, Bach is just amazing. I don't know if have you ever heard the Mozart joke when he goes to heaven? Well, so Mozart goes to heaven and he comes in and then God comes out and says, Mozart, I'm so glad you're here. I want you to be the director of the heavenly orchestra and choir. And Mozart looks around and says, yeah, but what about Bach? And God says, I am Bach. I don't know if that's okay to say.
We meet people wherever they are. Other questions? Yes, up here.
Flamenco music, you play with,
I don't play flamenco, but there's a lot of flamenco influence in, especially the Spanish, like Joaquin Rodrigo or Albeniz and Granada. You'll hear a lot of the flamenco influence. Even Fernando Sor, who was a classical Spanish composer, he has some flamenco influences in his music also. But I'm not a flamenco guitar player. Yes?
Is there any instruments that you like to play with? The guitar with another musician, like the sound combination?
Well, I love playing with singers, and also I have a duo with a percussionist, so we do a lot of guitar and percussion. But I like playing anything with anyone, especially if it's beautiful music. You know, if it's beautiful music, I'm in. You know, whatever it is.
Other questions? Yeah, I'll get the last one. Were you more influenced by Foxy Lady or Purple Haze?
I like Third Stone from the Sun. You know that song from Experience.
Okay. Okay, before we give Francisco a warm round of applause, I'd like to announce the upcoming concert. So on July 8th, mark your calendars, we have Tom Manuel and Gospel Road. That's an annual concert. It's the 5th year in a row that they performed here. They're a wonderful mix of impressive performers from the scenes of jazz, bluegrass, country, gospel, and Western traditions. The band normally includes such favorites as Tom Manuel, Steve Salerno, Buddy Merriam, Keenan Zach, Darrell Smith, and Laura Landor. So that's July 8th. August 5th, we do something quite unique. I mentioned that we have 3 main outreach programs here. We've got the concerts, we've got the poetry, and we've got the Native American drumming. Once a year, we pull them all together. It's called Conversations on the Sacred. So we have a series of sacred poems very deep in spirituality. And after each poem, there's a musical interlude from the students from the university. Also from our Native American drummer as well, Dr. Rick Stadler. So that's August 5th. And then this last group, I get a kick out of this, is a group from Stony Brook University on September 2nd called Boston Stoller. And Stoller, that's, I guess, the music center there. And I was introducing him and I said, usually when I get students from the university, I say they're graduate students from the university. And I'm looking at these guys on stage and I'm saying, oh, these graduate students are getting really young. Then I realized they're a group of undergraduate students. So they'll be with us on September 2nd. So July 8th, Tom Manuel and Gospel Road. August 5th, Conversations on the Sacred. And September 2nd, Boston Stella. Before you go out, remember the sign-up sheet here. Remember, if you like to leave a thank you for Francisco. Let's give Francisco a big round of applause. Be well, everybody. Remember, we did this.